The Phoenix Coyotes are halfway to hoisting the Stanley Cup in a journey that can only be described as improbable. It got us to thinking, what is the most improbable postseason run in the history of Arizona sports? It's our focus on this edition of The Face-Off, and it's coming up next.
My name is Adam Green. This is Vince Marotta, and as you can see, my playoff beard shows how improbable this Coyotes run is for me anyway, because it is too thick,
the
too
hair
itchy.
growth is not improbable. You're a hairy man. You're a very hirsute individual.
Yeah, as you guys can see, but I don't think either of us are picking the Coyotes run as the most improbable for Arizona sports. Vince,
Maybe
I know
in a
you
month
have,
or so we could.
Yeah, maybe. Let's hope so.
Yeah.
But let's give us your wrong answer as you go right now.
The most improbable postseason run in the history of Arizona sports? It's got to be the 2008 Arizona Cardinals, a team that came out of nowhere to advance all the way to Super Bowl 43, had a lead with 35 seconds to go in Super Bowl 43. I was at that game. I covered it from a media standpoint. I went to the game as a fan. It didn't sink in for me that the Cardinals were actually in the Super Bowl until I saw them run out onto the field at Raymond James Stadium, and I saw the Cardinals logo painted in the end zone. That's how improbable it was for me. Why? Because for a good portion of the season, the Cardinals weren't even really competitive.
True.
Yes, they were the NFC West champions, but they had 4 ugly losses to the Jets, the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Patriots. Those 4 losses were by an average of 27.5 points. That doesn't happen with Super Bowl quality teams, to get your brains kicked in that badly. That's one of the reasons why I feel it was that improbable.
That's true, but you look at the Cardinals, they won the NFC West. They had some comfortable victories, too. That's part of the reason why they got blown out down the stretch, is because they had pretty much clinched the division with a few weeks left. They had 5 Pro Bowlers on that team. They had a couple Hall of Famers, Kurt Warner, Larry Fitzgerald. They were a good team. They had the 3rd best offense in the NFL.
Okay, well, then enlighten me. Who was the most? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Yeah, the most improbable playoff run for any Arizona team, postseason run, was the 1997 Arizona Wildcats basketball
Boo.
team.
Boo.
So says Vince. He boos. But the point is, the Arizona Wildcats, they were 25-9, 11-7 in the Pac-10 that year, good enough for 5th, which was the worst Pac-10 finish in the Lute Olson tournament era. Any team that he had was never that bad. Were they ranked most of the year? Yeah, they were. People had high expectations for them, but they didn't seem to meet them throughout the course of the regular season. Only when they got to the postseason, led by their freshman point guard Mike Bibby, did they get hot. And then they had to beat some really good teams to even win the tournament. 3 number 1 seeds. No other team has done that.
I might shock you when I say this. It was a great run by Arizona, but it wasn't all that improbable. 3 NBA players on that team. 2 of them are still in the league all these years later. It's not like they came out of nowhere. It was a down year regular season-wise for the Wildcats that year, but they had been to the tournament 13 straight years previous to that. They had been to the Final Four. They were one of the premier programs on the West Coast. That's why I don't think it was as improbable as the Cardinals, and I'll give you another reason why.
Please.
6 wins of the Cardinals' 9 regular season victories that year came against the NFC West, which unequivocally was the worst division in football that year, and maybe the worst division in the history of the National Football League, meaning they went 3-7 against everybody else. They had to play teams in the playoffs in Carolina and Philadelphia that had already beaten them soundly in the regular season. And their one road game of that postseason run was in Charlotte, where the Carolina Panthers were 8-0 in the regular season and were a heavy favorite going in. Nobody expected the Cardinals to compete in that game. I know I didn't.
True, but take a step back and you see the Cardinals were 6-2 at home during the regular season. They were good at University of Phoenix Stadium. They had 2 of their 3 playoff games at home, before the Super Bowl, of course, that they beat the Falcons, who were led by a rookie quarterback. They beat the Eagles, who had a worse record than the Cardinals, which is why the game you had it in Arizona. Their playoff run kind of worked out well for them. Everything seemed to fall into place for them, much like it is for the Coyotes right now, as we're seeing with the NHL playoffs, whereas the Wildcats had to beat the 3 number 1 seeds. They didn't catch any breaks. They had to beat North Carolina, Kansas, and Kentucky. Great coaches, great teams, great games, and to kind of prove that they were the best team. Now, you could talk about all the talent they had, and there were NBA players on that team, but they weren't dominant NBA players. Yes, Mike Bibby, number 2 pick in the draft, but he was a freshman. Miles Simon was the most outstanding player in the Final Four. He had a nothing NBA career, 2nd-round pick, I believe, by the Seattle Sonics back in the day. So there was talent on that team, yes, but it wasn't dominant talent. They did get hot at the right time, but had to beat some really good teams, which the Cardinals, you look back, really didn't have to.
I would disagree with that, but I will make my final point. I kind of alluded to it earlier. When you consider the Cardinals' history, 61 years, from 1947 till 2008, they had one playoff win. One. In that same time frame, the Dallas Cowboys had 32 playoff wins. Their Super Bowl opponent, the Pittsburgh Steelers, had 28 or 26 playoff wins. This franchise was a laughingstock for 41 years. And it felt weird for even Cardinal fans who wanted more than anything, who had suffered through all those embarrassing losses and all those lean years. It was hard for them to grasp that they were in the Super Bowl. Overcoming your own inept history, I think, is a huge factor in considering the improbability of a playoff run. And the Cardinals, I mean, it doesn't get worse than that.
Yeah, but you think about how difficult it is to win the NCAA tournament. Arizona has had better teams than that 97 one, more talented rosters, better NBA talent even, and they don't do it. They get bounced first, second, Elite Eight, whatever. Doesn't matter. They don't.
You leave out one big factor. Those other teams didn't sell their soul to the devil like that 97 team did.
You know what?
I had to get that in.
He did, but it's also just they won the championship. They were the most improbable postseason run because of what they had to do with what they had to work with.
Well, maybe, like I said, in a month we'll be talking about the Phoenix Coyotes hoisting the Stanley
Hopefully.
Cup, and that's the winner, by the way, if it does come to fruition.
Indeed.
But for our purposes now, we've spoken. Now it's time for you to speak. Go to the face-off page on arizonasports.com. You can vote for either Adam's argument or my argument, the 97 Wildcats, the 2008 Arizona Cardinals, or if you want to share one of your own, feel free to add a comment at the bottom of the article. For Adam Green, I'm Vince Marotta. This has been the Arizona Sports Face-Off. We'll see you next time.